So I started to get another video of putting the rear end of this bike back together, and then I realized a good amount of you guys have asked for a soldering tutorial. I don't currently have anything I need to solder, but I can grab some just scrap wire and I guess run you guys through it as detailed as I can be. So first you have to decide how you want to marry your wires. There are a ton of different ways to do this, a lot of different methods depending on what you're working on. The two that I use most often are lash splices and then fraying out the wire bundles and twisting them together. I'm not going to do a lash splice in this video, but just the basics of it. You need to get a wire bundle that is the same material as the wires that you're going to be working with. You cut one piece, one strand of that wire bundle off. I don't have it here with me, but you do need metal sheathing that you'll put over this insulation. You will put the wire bundles next to each other and you wrap the one strand of wire around those bundles, and it will sit on top of a layer of metal sheathing on each of these wires. For this method though, I'm going to be fraying out both wire bundles. And you want to make sure they seat all the way back and turn. So these are fully married. It is a strong twist, so I can't even pull them apart as is. So we're going to get our solder ready. So you have to make sure you choose the right kind of solder per what you're working on. I go between leaded solder and non-leaded solder. For this application, I'm using leaded solder. With your solder iron, make sure you have it set to the right temperature per the manufacturer data sheet of whatever solder that you're using. I'm going to be using leaded solder. I get my iron heated to 600 degrees. Once your iron is heated up and ready, you have to make sure that that tip is completely clean or it's not going to heat the solder to the right temperature. So I go through with a sponge that is wet. I wipe both sides. And then I go through with a brass like roughing sponge and I get any old solder off of the tip of that iron. So now we have our wires married, our solder iron is ready to go. Next is prepping the wires. Some people like to use a flux core solder. I like to use liquid flux. I think it flows the solder a lot better. Rule of thumb is you want to put the flux anywhere that you want your solder to go. Solder is going to flow wherever your flux is coated. So I will go through and coat this entire section. So put a dab of solder on the tip of your iron. That'll also help the solder flow towards it. And I heat up the wires. So now that we have that wire bundle fully coated in solder, we're going to go through and clean all the flux off. Cleaning all the flux off is very important because flux is corrosive. If there's any flux left on here and I put shrink wrap over this, it will cause corrosion in this insulation and the wires. So make sure you clean it all off. I get a basic IPA, so any kind of rubbing alcohol will cut through that flux and get it off. So the best way to get flux off, especially after it's dried and it's really sticky, is to use a very coarse old paintbrush. I can't find mine, so I'm just going to use a Q-tip for this video. But gets the point across, get all that flux off of there. So we got all the flux off. We have a fully coated wire bundle with no solder buildup. So next is your shrink wrap. Appropriate size for your gauge of wire. I usually use a heat gun, obviously. If I can't find it, I don't really want to find it right now, so I'm going to use a lighter. Not the best practice. And then it's done.